All right, today we are diving deep into a really fascinating concept from the book Zazenl. We're going to unpack Chapter 1, Section 5, which introduces this profound idea of what's called the Yang spirit.
So let's just start with a quick thought experiment. What if your emotions, your deepest feelings, doubt, greed, anger, what if they actually had a visible color? What do you think that color would say about what's going on inside you?
To really get a handle on the Yang spirit, we've got to start by looking at our original state, our pristine state. The text calls this our radiant inner self, this core of pure light that's supposedly inside every single one of us.
So what is this Yang spirit exactly? Well, the book describes it as a radiant globe. It's milky white, it's translucent. But here's the key part. This isn't for some enlightened few. Nope, every single person has one. It's a fundamental part of who we are.
Okay, so that kind of begs the question, right? If we all have this inner light, why can't we see it or feel it? The answer the text gives is actually pretty simple. We're just so focused on our physical bodies, so identified with them, that we've become totally blind to this more subtle part of ourselves. Now, that pure milky white light, it doesn't always stay that way. Our emotions can literally change its color. So in this next part, we're going to see how our feelings start to stain the spirit, transforming it from pure light into, colored energy.
So where does it all start? Where does this big transformation begin? The text points to one single powerful catalyst that kicks the whole thing off, the emotion of doubt. You can think of it like the very first ripple that disturbs the calm, clear water of the spirit.
And you can see here, it's like a chain reaction. It all starts when doubt appears. But this isn't just a fleeting thought. According to the text, it literally creates a gravitational point right at the spirit center, which then causes the whole thing to start rotating. The spinning energy then changes, and simple doubt evolves into this active craving for things, for objects outside of ourselves.
And from there, this craving splits off and creates two main stains. On one side, you've got greed. This is associated with the element of water, and it stains the spirit black. And here's where it gets wild. The text connects the collective greed of humanity to worldly floods. Then on the other side, you have desire and anger. These are linked to fire. They stain the spirit red and are connected to fire disasters. It's this incredible idea that our inner emotional world is directly mirrored in the outer world.
So, if our spirit is constantly shifting colors depending on our emotions, can anyone actually see this happening? The text says yes, but it's an ability that very few people have. Which brings us to our next section, how one's inner state actually becomes visible.
So who are these people? Well, according to the text, this ability is reserved for those who have reached a really, really high level of spiritual practice. Specifically, people who have gotten to a state above the third dhyana. You can think of that as just a profoundly deep state of meditation. It's only from that place of incredible inner stillness that they can actually observe the Yang spirits of other people.
And what do these advanced practitioners usually see? Well, for most people, it's a mix, a swirl of black from greed and red from desire and anger. And the text adds this really important detail. The deeper and darker the color, the more intense the desires are that are driving it.
This chart really helps to visualize that spectrum, right? On one end, you have the common state, that dark mix of black and red. But as a person moves forward in their spiritual practice, those colors start to fade out, and the spirit moves back toward its original, pure milky white. It's a literal visual sign of spiritual progress.
Okay, this is where it gets really subtle and interesting. Even among very advanced practitioners, the specific spiritual path they walk leaves a kind of signature on their spirit. So, for example, someone whose practice focuses on contemplating doubt will develop a spirit that's milky white but with a slight gray tint. On the other hand, someone who practices by contemplating longing, which is a method from the Pure Land tradition, their spirit becomes milky white with a hint of pink. The path you walk literally colors your spirit.
All of this fascinating detail really leads to the biggest question of all. So what? Why does any of this matter? What's the point of all these colors? And that brings us to our final section, the path back to purity, and what the real goal of authentic practice is supposed to be.
The text actually gives this special ability a name. It's called the Dharma eye. This is the power to see another person's spiritual state just by looking at the color of their yang spirit, and it's a very specific ability, different from other kinds of supernatural powers.
And right here, this is the most critical point in the entire section, a direct, powerful warning from the text itself.
The goal of practice is not to get cool powers like the Dharma. The text couldn't be clearer about this. Seeking supernatural powers ultimately leads to being controlled by evil external forces. It's a huge warning against the trap of spiritual ambition.
So let's just pull this all together. The core idea here is that we all start with this pure, radiant yang spirit. But our own emotions, especially things like greed and desire, stain it black and red, turning it into a kind of readable map of our inner world. So the whole journey of spiritual practice is really about purifying our spirit, getting it back to that original milky white. And the biggest takeaway? That inner purity is the goal. It's not about chasing after special powers along the way. So I'll leave you with one last question to think about. Based on everything we've just gone over, what color is your spirit today?